My name is Etta Gluzband. My married name is Gluzband. My maiden name is Weissman, and I was born in 1933 in Poland, Włodzimierz-Wolyńsk town. Yeah, my parents were relatively still young people. My father was, before he got killed, was 33 years old. My mother was maybe the same age or a year younger or older. And they had their own home. And my father was a butcher and he had his own business. And my mother was home raising the children and running the house. And we had quite a comfortable life. We lived in, actually the house was built by my grandfather, my mother's father. It was a house, the courtyard was all family homes, my father's family's homes, and our house was built in one of those, in that courtyard where his brothers were living. And there was a house, a 2-bedroom house, a living room, a kitchen, and added on another little kitchen on the other side. It was a very comfortable house, nice and warm, everything comfortable, yes.
Do you have any siblings?
I have a sister. My sister lives in Israel, and she is now 84 years old. She's married to her husband. He's still around. He's 92 years old. Before the war, I did not go to school. My mother went in 1939 to sign me up for school, and they turned her down because they said that because I was born in December, and they said I'm still too young, I have to come back next year. So I did not go to school before the war.
Was your family observant?
I would say medium. Not very observant and not very not observant.
So did you go to temple every week or just on high holidays?
Just on high holidays.
And did you keep kosher?
My mother kept kosher because my mother came from a very religious family. Her father and mother were very, very religious. So she kept kosher, my mother. Well, in 1939, when I was about 5, 6 years old, the Russians occupied our town, and that's actually probably what I guess that started the war in Europe. But the Russians stayed in our town for a whole year, and after that year, the Germans were nearing our town, and the Russians left after that year. And when the Russians left, the Germans started to bomb our town, and they moved into our town. It would have been 1940.
During that year, were the Russians protecting you? Or
yeah,
were they?
They were nice to us. They were nice to us, yes.
So their role was to protect you from the Germans?
Yes.
And what happened to your family once the Germans invaded?
Once the Germans invaded, we knew it's bad. We tried to stay close to home, and then immediately it started to feel bad. It started to feel very bad. The Germans at first, when they invaded our town, they were not as brutal as they turned out to be later. They actually tried to come to our house, maybe ask for some butter or eggs or stuff like that. Maybe we can provide them. And when we said we can't, one of the German soldiers even said, you know what, I work in a hospital and they're there. To my mother, he said that if you come to that hospital, I can give you some sugar. And it's a matter of fact that I went with my mother to that hospital. And we met that German soldier, and he gave us some sugar, and we went home.
Was he a Nazi?
Was that?
Was he a Nazi?
I wouldn't think he was a Nazi. He was a soldier. A Nazi wouldn't do it. I met Nazis.
What were they like?
The Nazis? Scared to death. The Nazis, all their job was to kill, actually. The Nazis came to our town, and they divided the town between ghettos, that people cannot walk free in town. They have to stay just in those ghettos that the Nazis said that's where we can stay. And there were like 2 ghettos in our town. We were allowed to stay in our homes where one of the ghettos was. So we stayed in our home. And we actually could not walk or travel in our town. We were supposed to stay in ghetto. But my father, they took him to work, and it was winter with the snow. It's like a Massachusetts winter, you know. You have to clean the snow, you have to clean the ice. That's what he did at first. And that was the beginning of the ghettos. And as time went on, the ghettos were worse and worse and worse, and we knew, and they said, they threatened us that they were going to kill us all in the ghetto. So they used to first they used to catch men, and they used to kill them, and they killed them. That was the beginning of the ghetto. And as time went on, they threatened us that they're going to kill us all. And so we were always in danger. And there was really no food, but somehow we survived. My father was still alive at that time, and they provided us with food, but we were always scared. Scared to death that the time will come and they will kill us all. And I remember one time, as I said, in that courtyard, my whole father's family had homes. And my grandmother, I remember, my father's mother, came in as being a little girl for 5, 6 years old. I was standing near my father, and I see my grandmother, my father's mother, came in the house, and she hugged my father. And she kissed him. And she said goodbye to him, to my father, my grandmother, his mother. And being a little girl, I've never seen it before happen, but even then it gave me some indication. This is not normal or regular basis that his mother would come and hug him and kiss him and say goodbye to him, to my father, to her son.
Where did she go?
It was still quiet when she came in our house, and she went back to her house because it was close to a pogrom. And as time went on, the beginning, the Germans was not that bad. They had like moving kitchens, and they would come to the neighborhood, and people that would go, they would give them a bowl of soup or something, and that's how it went. That's how it went. But it didn't take long, and they were saying it's going to be a pogrom, and we're all going to get killed. And my father was thinking, what are we going to do when they come and they're going to kill us all? Where are we going to hide? And we had a house, as I told you, in a attic, right? And I mentioned we had a small little kitchen besides our regular kitchen. The small little kitchen was added on later on in time, as time goes by, and it had a separate little attic there, like not flat like the whole. Meantime, my mother's brother and his wife came to our house because they were living in a different ghetto. And they asked my mother and father if they can move in with us into our house, because I don't know if that was the rumors. They were all rumors that the ghetto that they were in is the dead ghetto. The ghetto that we are in is the life ghetto, as if whether they could move into our house, my uncle and aunt. And of course my mother's brother, and she would never say no, and they did move into our house. And it didn't take long, and the program started. And as my father figured it out, that we should all go up the attic, and we were 4 of us, me, my sister, my mother, my father, my uncle, and my aunt, and we all pushed ourselves into that little attic that was kind of separate from the rest of the attic. And my father put a board so they wouldn't see us, and that's where we were hiding. And the program started.
How long did you hide for?
We were there a day, 2, 3. It was very, not roomy, of course, and no food and no water, no nothing. And my father decided, it got a little quiet, thinking maybe it stopped. And he saw that it's already a few days that we have no water, no food, nothing. And he decided that he would go down the attic and maybe he'll find some water in the house and bring up some water so we can drink. We were little girls, me, my sister, and the rest of us. My father and my uncle, my mother's brother, decided they will go down and look. And my father was the first one to go down because it was our house. So he did go down. There was an opening in the kitchen that you could go down to the kitchen from the attic. And my father was the first one, and my uncle would follow him. And as my father got into our kitchen, the Germans were there. And when he saw the Germans, my father yelled out, "I'm lost," loud. So my uncle would hear and wouldn't follow him. And he did hear him, and he didn't follow him. But they caught my father, and they took him to jail. He was barefoot, and they took him all through town to jail, and we never saw my father again. And my uncle survived. He went back to that little hall that we were hiding. And not until, it was about 2 weeks that we were there. Not until we saw, it was like fall, but still warm. We saw that people already moving around in the city, that it quieted down, they stopped killing. And not until we were sure that they stopped the killing. And the people that were free and they went out, figured that other people are hiding, and they would yell out loud, "We are free, you can come out," and stuff like that. That's when we knew that the killing, that was over, the first one. And during sitting in that attic up there, my grandmother, that I told you about, that came to say goodbye to my father, she was hiding in one of her basements with my aunt, and there were little kids, and the German caught them all, and I saw them all going with the Germans, the little kids with their grandmother and the aunt, to get killed. And then the killing stopped and we came out.
What year was that?
that had to be 1941. What I told you up to now is just the beginning. After that program ended and we could move around freely, the Germans decided that they're going to build a new ghetto in a different part of the city. So we all had to leave from our homes and go to that other side of the city and that new ghetto. And that's where we went. And we survived, like I told you, myself, my mother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt. And also my mother's sister survived. She was in a different part of not with us then, but she survived. But in the second ghetto, we joined, my mother's sister had 2 children, and they killed her son, but the daughter survived, but the aunt joined us. My mother's sister joined us, joined me, my sister, my mother, and she. And we were together in that new ghetto, in a room together, the 4 of us.
What was the new ghetto like?
The new ghetto was, they said this is the dead ghetto. So they built again another ghetto. That ghetto, that people that survived, like I was just told you. Now they built a new ghetto for people that are working, they have professions, they can work. And every one of them had a certificate, what they're doing, what's their profession. So my uncle, my aunt that were with us, my uncle was a painter, my aunt was a dressmaker, so they had those certificates. And they were in the new ghetto where people can work. So there was one ghetto that people don't have professions, one ghetto that people have professions. And it didn't take long that we were in the ghetto where people have no professions. And rumors, the whole thing was going rumors. Nobody came tell us, you know, if you're going to stay here, you're going to get killed, but we knew it. And we knew that the next day, our ghetto, they're all going to get killed in that ghetto. And my mother's sister, my aunt said to us while we were in the room, put on your coats. It was winter and snow. And let's go to that ghetto where the professional people are living. Let's go there. Let's try going, maybe we'll make it. Maybe we'll make it there, because the Germans were all over the place. In the ghetto in front was a gate with the SS, and they were standing there. And we all got dressed, the 4 of us, and we just went. We went to the gate to get out of the ghetto. And we got to the gate, and the Germans were standing there, and we kept on walking to the gate, and nobody said anything. It didn't stop us, the German. He didn't stop us, he just let us go. He didn't say, halt, don't go, stay, nothing. And we kept on going as if nothing, as if we allowed to go. And we went all the way by foot to the ghetto where the working people ghetto.
How far away was it?
It was far. It was far, but in a situation like that, you don't even think how far it is. You just go. I don't know if it was 5 miles or 6 miles or 10 miles. I have no idea. I don't remember. And we went to that ghetto, to the new one. And somehow we got in there. And once we got in there, where are we going to stay? So my uncle, my father's brother, was already there in that ghetto. So he let us in his room where he was living with other friends. The three of us, me, my sister, and my mother. He let us into his room, and he gave us his bed so we can lie down and sleep. And we did. And he was sitting all night, not sleeping, just putting down the curtains, no light, as if it's dark. He was sitting and watching. We were all the three of us in his bed. And we were there like a night, 2 or 3, and he said, you're going to have to find a place of your own, to look for a room where you can find a bed somewhere else where I can lie down and sleep too, And that's what my mother did. She found a room where it was a big room where a lot of people were living in one room, where everybody had a bed. She found this room, and we found a bed there, and we were happy to find a bed. And of course, we were sleeping, the three of us, in one bed all the time. We were like one person, the three of us. And we were in that ghetto for quite a while.
What was life like in that ghetto?
That ghetto? And that ghetto is specifically was made for people that could work for the Germans, painters, whatever profession they had, so they can work for the Germans. Children were no children there. No children. Women, men could work. They would give him jobs. Like my uncle was a painter. They would give him jobs outside the gate and do some painting work. And my mother got a job in a laundry. It wasn't necessarily for the Germans to wash the laundry, but the Jewish people that were living in that ghetto, men, they needed clean clothes, so they would, as of this is a laundromat, and she would do their laundry. And my sister is 4 years older than I was, she took my sister with her to that laundry, and my sister was working with my mother doing the laundry.
So what would you do all day?
In that room that we were living in, not everybody left the room, not everybody went to work. So there were elderly people there. So my mother figured she'll leave me in that room. The elderly people, I'll be around that room, and the elderly people will keep an eye on me. And that's how it was. I was all alone, left in that room.
What would you do to pass the time?
That's a very interesting question. A very interesting question. It used to be that area where that ghetto was a very fancy, expensive area. And there were trees and gardens. And at the time it was summer, and there were a lot of rabbits there. And the rabbits used to dig in and out their houses. And I used to sit and watch how they dig their houses. They were not afraid of me. I used to sit and watch them, how they dig. It was interesting watching how rabbits dig their homes, and that's their home, in and out. There were a lot of rabbits there. So that was one part of my entertainment, of my living. Other than that, I would be around the room there. The people that would come in, maybe bring something to eat, they would share it with me. They would sit me down on a little table and say, Etta, here's a little bread and some onions. Why don't you sit down and eat? People.
How old were you?
Well, I would say at that time, probably 8 years old.
Mm-hmm. Were the old ladies nice to you?
Excuse me?
Like, would the old ladies talk to you? Would the older ladies talk to you? when
The
you were-
older people?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would talk to me. The older, it was a gentleman, by the way. He was not very nice to me, you know. What am I doing, a little girl, you know, all day here? What am I doing there? What are you doing here? What are you doing? He was not a very, very nice man. I don't know why. But he was there. Who cared? I was in and out that room, you know. He was there all day too. And one day we lived near a river went through a town where I was where the ghetto was, and it was summer. I figured, you know, nobody specifically took care of me, watched me. I could do anything I wanted. I went down to the river by myself. And I go down to the river because my mother said, don't go farther than this room. You're staying here. Around here, you don't go anywhere else. And in those days, you listen. But I went down to the river for some reason, and I saw people are bathing in the river, are going in the river and they're bathing there. I saw people in the river because it was summer. I said, these people can be in the river, maybe I'll try to go in the river. And I went in the river where it was shallow, it was not deep. I went in and I in the water, and I started to swim a little. I didn't know how to swim. I never tried to learn how to swim. And I went into the river. Nobody was near me, and I started to swim. And as I started to swim, I saw I'm not sinking. You know, I'm actually swimming. So I tried it again and again and again, and I was swimming. And thanks to the ghetto, I know how to swim. And nobody, my mother I don't think I ever told her that because I wasn't supposed to leave the room. And I learned to swim there. And then I came back to the room, and my mother came from work and my sister. And there were other very the young people in the ghetto were trying to attack the Germans. They saw no end to it. And they knew they were going to get killed at the end. There were some young people with 18, 19, 20 years old. And they were trying to do some damage to the Germans. And this I never told anybody, but the Germans killed them. And I was so curious, and nobody ever told me go or don't go. And I went to see what happened to those people, and I cannot describe it. This is something that it's in me that I cannot describe it.
How they killed them?
What's that?
How they killed them, you can't describe?
Not, they were already killed during the night. I just cannot describe it. I should have never gone there. If I had somebody to watch me, I should have never gone. But I went, and I was hiding kind of in that room, just look out with one eye, and I just ran back to my room, to the apartment where I was living. But that was a terrible, terrible sight.
Was that the first time you saw something so horrific?
Something,
So horrific?
Yes.
Do you think?
I heard about those things, but I never saw it. But that was the first time I saw something so horrific.
And these kids, these 19, 18-year-old kids, what would they do to the Germans to try and like damage them, as you said?
The truth is, I don't know exactly what they tried to do, but I can imagine that
Mischievous.
They tried to do something to the Germans to hurt them, and they were not successful. Mm-hmm. Nobody was successful to kill the Germans. Nobody. A lot of people were asking, what do you mean you were sitting there and not fighting back? You had to be there to know. You had to be there to know that you cannot fight the Germans. That was impossible.
There's so many of them.
It's not just the amount of people, the brutality of them, the hatred that they had to kill. You see a Jew, he's getting killed. So from that part on, we were still in that ghetto. And we were there a whole year in that ghetto. A whole year. I learned swimming there. Can you believe it?
And you did the same thing every day?
Yeah. When we were successful to survive the night and not to be killed, we did the same thing every day. Because in the ghetto, there says, without a pogrom, without taking all the people in that hall and kill them all, they used to run around their houses and grab people just spontaneously and kill them during that year. And they grabbed a lot of young women and they were screaming and yelling, and they didn't want to go, but you couldn't get out of the German claws. That was impossible. Before that year ended, we knew that it's going to end someday, but nobody knew when, but everybody knew that it's going to end someday. So people were looking for hiding places outside the ghetto because we had a whole year, and some people were working outside the ghetto so they could get in touch with Gentile people to get some hiding places in case that there's another pogrom. And many people find hiding places in Gentiles' homes. How they got in touch with them, that I don't know details, but they did. But we were the three of us in the ghetto, me, my mother, and my sister. And as I said, my mother's brother and his wife were in the ghetto because he was a painter and his wife was a dressmaker. They found a place outside the ghetto in case there's a pogrom. At one time, there was as I said, doesn't have to be a pogrom, but they just come around and catch people and kill them. So that happened at one time. My uncle found a place outside the ghetto, my mother's brother. And his wife was hiding there during that year, and she had her family hiding there, her brother, her sister, whoever, in that underground, and they were not in the ghetto. So my uncle gave my mother her certificate, her working certificate, because she was not in the ghetto, that as if my mother is a dressmaker. So she had a certificate, my mother. In case they come to ask you, what are you doing here? What is your job? As a matter of fact, that one time the SS were catching people. And me, my mother, and my sister didn't know where to hide. What if they come and catch us? We had no idea where to hide. We didn't, because we were in the ghetto. In that room that I'm telling you, that famous room. And it's a matter of fact that one assessment came into that room to look for people. But there was a Jewish police in the ghetto, so always a Jewish policeman would come with him to the room. So this assessment came to that room. All the people for that room were hiding, were not there, because they knew this is the end. Me, my mother, my sister stayed in the room because we tried to hide in different places. We tried a bathroom to get in, the three of us. We tried other places, but we figured it's not a good place to hide in a bathroom, you know. Then open the door and you're right there. So we figured we'll just stay in that room. What'll be, it'll be. And there was the three of us, and I think there was another woman or another two women. We stayed. We didn't have a place to go. An assessment came in to look for people, and he saw me, my mother, my sister, and that other woman. And he comes and he talks to my mother. I don't remember what he asked. He have a certificate or not? So my mother, he actually asked for the certificate. So my mother showed him my aunt's certificate that she got. So he asked, who are these children? Me and my sister. She said, these are my children. And there was the other woman, I don't know what he was asking the other woman. And he looked at us, that SS, this is the worst, Gestapo. He looked at us, I looked at him. He was standing in front of me, even closer than you are. And he let us stay there and didn't take us away. I think what it was, I don't know, my sister says that the Jewish policeman said something, I don't remember him saying anything, but I believe my sister, she's older than I am, maybe she heard what he said, and he didn't take us away. Now, after that, my uncle that had that hiding place outside the ghetto, and he knew that the pogrom is going to come soon. So his whole family were hiding in that place, but my uncle was in ghetto, he was working. He came to my mother one day. He knew that my mother, my sister, myself have no place to go. And he said to my mother, my uncle, Miriam, her name was Miriam, may she rest in peace. She said, I have a hiding place outside the ghetto. Hannah's there, his wife, and her sister and brother. I have a hiding place. And I would like to save at least one of you three, at least one of your children, he said to my mother. He didn't say the three of you, just one. And he said, which one would you like to go? Which girl? We were two girls. Me, I was the younger one, or my sister. And my mother didn't think long. She figured my sister is older, it'll be easier for her to be with her. I should go. And my mother said I should go, I go. You said to my mother, if anybody, if we're at all gonna survive, maybe somebody will survive from your family. And my mother decided that I should go and hide with them. And the Gentile woman that they were hiding came to the ghetto and picked me up and brought me over to her house. And I had said goodbye to my mother, and I went there. And I came there, and they had a room where in the winter, where they were raising the chickens. They put me to sit with the chickens, to watch the chickens, how they. And then they saw this is not a result for me to sit in the room with the chickens. So they put me in the room where the kitchen is. There was a bed there, so they put me on the bed. And somehow my aunt had some yarn and needles, so she gave me that to keep me busy, you know. So I was knitting, and I was missing my mother. I got, little by little every day, very depressed. Not to be with my mother, to be there. And I said, I want to go back to my mother. I told them. And they said, you know, you go back, they're going to kill everybody in that ghetto very soon. I says, I don't care. I want to go back to my mother. Because I'll survive. I didn't say him that, but I was thinking, I'll survive and my mother will not. I'll be by myself. I don't know if I was thinking about that. That I'm thinking about it now, how I felt. And I said, I want to go back to my mother. And I kept on nudging them and nudging them and nudging them until they saw that I'm very depressed and I want to go back. And that same gentlewoman got me back to the ghetto, into the ghetto. There were barbed wires, so there were places where you could get in. And I got back into the ghetto and I ran to my mother, being so happy that I'm back with my mother. And when my mother saw me, she was furious. She was furious. What do you mean you came back? There's rumors that in 2 weeks we're all gonna get killed here. Why did you come back? She was furious why I came back. But I knew that's what I had to do. I was near my mother, I was happy. I had no questions, I had no complaints. This is it. I'm near my mother. What's going to be with my mother, my sister, and be with me. And I was there. And we were again sleeping in the same room, just in a different corner. And 5 o'clock in the morning, one morning, we heard shooting. And when we heard shooting, we knew this is it. This is the pogrom. And when they said this is the pogrom, this is going to be the last of the pogroms. Juden reign, like no more Jews. When we heard shooting, we all grabbed whatever we could because we were sleeping. 5 o'clock in the morning, so I grabbed a coat, my mother grabbed a coat, shoes, I don't know. And we started running out of that room. My mother somehow, when she was working in that laundry, one of the men that came in there told her that not too far where we were living, there is a house there. They're pretending it's a shul, it's a synagogue, and they have a bunker there in that room, in that house. He told my mother, for one of the men that she used to do the laundry. And so my mother knew there was a bunker there in that house, which was not far from where we were living. And when we heard, and as a matter of fact, during the year while we were living in that ghetto, and I used to walk around all the time. I was I don't know, walking. I saw men going with a talit, wearing a talit and going to that house. And so I figured they're going to shul. And I see a man walking covered with a talit and going there and there. You figure there's a shul there, so the men are going to pray in the morning with it. But under the talit, they had things to dig a bunker there. That did not cross my mind then, but I'm thinking now, why did he wear the talit every morning when he went to shul? He could wear the talit when he got to shul. No, but he was wearing the talit while he was going to shul. And in that building there was a bunker, and my mother knew about it. So when we heard the shooting and we started to run into that direction, where my mother knew that somebody told her there's a bunker there. And we made that building, and we made it still into that bunker. There was a hole in the floor, and a lot of people knew about it. They were just jumping down inside, and we made it there. And somebody closed that cover from the floor, and that took like minutes. We made it. You don't know if you made it there that you're safe, but at least. So while we were in there, in that bunker, there were already hundreds of people. down there. A lot of people knew about it. Hundreds of people. And they managed to close the cover, and people were standing right one next to the other. There was hundreds of people. So we were standing there. And finally we moved in farther, because it was quite a big bunker. And we found a corner, the three of us, and we sat down there. And we fell asleep. It was at night already. And the Germans got into that room, and they did not know there's a bunker underneath. As a matter of fact, they stepped on that cover. It wasn't closed perfectly, and he closed it. We heard it, but he didn't realize that he closed that cover. And we were sleeping there in that corner. We fell asleep. And when I woke up in the morning, it's just the three of us were there. All the people were gone. The Jewish people. There were hundreds of people there. They were all left. It was me, my mother, my sister, one man with his son, another woman, like 5, 6 people just remained in that bunker because they knew this bunker, finally the Germans are going to find it. So, and they had probably places where to go. So the first night they all disappeared. But the three of us and the other people had no place to go. We're not just going to go out and go walking when the killing is going on. So we stay there. We sat there. And that man that was with his son, after a few days, after a week, when we heard it quiet down, he went out, and it was winter, December, and he got some snow. There was no food. He got some snow, so at least we had some snow. And while we were sitting in that bunker, my mother was thinking. I was thinking too. I was young, but I was thinking. My mind was sharp like anything. And my mother asked me, how long are we going to sit here? Either we go out and we get killed in town, or we just stay there forever, you know? So my mother was asking me, Ethel, would you by any chance remember how to go back to that place where your uncle took you to hide, and that outside by that Gentile woman? Would you remember how to get back there? And I was a young kid, and I really didn't know that much about that part of town, but that was like 2 weeks apart, so it still stayed in my mind very clearly. And when she asked me that, I was thinking, started to think. And started to think, you know, you go here, you go there, there's a house here, then you go there, I go here. And then I said, yes, I remember. After I was sure that I remember, I told her I remember. My mother would never believe me that I remember. But there was no choice. You believe me or not, this is it. And we were there 2 weeks, and after the 2 weeks, we were talking, and this man and that son, we were talking like the 5 of us, the 6 of us, should we go out?
So you were in the bunker for
in
2
a
weeks?
bunker for 2 weeks with no food, no nothing. He just brought us some snow. He risked his life to go out to get some snow. And we went, I mean, we were talking about, you know, you ask people, not your family necessarily. Is it time to go out? Is it time to go? Is it time? Are you going to survive? Am I going to remember where the place is? And my mother asked me, how would you go there? She wanted to know details because she knew the city well. And she knew shortcuts. And I told her everything I knew. It was not too far from the Jewish cemetery. And in their houses, the Gentile houses were with the straw roofs and stuff like that. And I remember every step of the way. I remembered. And one night we decided we're going out. And we did go out. It was winter, it was like Christmas night. And we went out and we went, it was a big, big hill to climb up, and we did that. And one of the dogs started to bark, but that's not important. It is important because that dog could bring out the owners, who's walking out there. But it didn't, and we were walking, and my mother figured out shortcuts how to get there. And she brought us to the street. There was the cemetery there. And I saw the houses that I saw 2 weeks ago, that area. And I even know they didn't live on the main street. You had to take another little street to get into their street. And I remember that little street, how to get in. And we got to that house where I knew, where my uncle was, to that door. And I said to my mother, this is the door, this is where they live. My mother wouldn't believe me. She would ask me, Ethel, are you sure? I have to say how I felt that time, because it's a very important point why I'm alive today. When my mother asked me if I'm sure, I was actually upset. How dare you ask me if I'm sure? If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't bring you here. A child that age, This is a very important question. Are you sure this is the door? If it's not the door, you're getting killed immediately. But I was sure up to that moment. But after she asked me, are you sure? I started to think, oh my, maybe I'm not sure. But I said, I was thinking whether I'm sure or not, I'll say yes. Whether I'm sure or not, I'll say yes. And I said yes. And I'm asking my sister, she was standing right there, did it take me long to say yes? No, she said, you said it immediately. And when my mother heard that I say yes, she trusted me. And she said, Ethel, you were there, the Gentile woman knows you. I was always called Ethel. She gave me a name, she said, we'll call you Etta, that Gentile woman. And ever since, my name is Etta. And she said, my mother, to me, this Gentile woman knows you well. She knows you. Why don't you knock on the door? And I knocked on the door, very slightly. And she came to the door. And she asked, who is it? And I said, it's Etta. She gave me the name Etta. When she heard it's Etta, she knew immediately that's me. She says, I'll go call your uncle. He was hiding in the underground there in the bunker. She went and she called my uncle. He was in the ghetto that time too, but he made it. He was successful to make it to that, because he was working. And he came to the door and opened the door. And instead of Etta, there are 3 Ettas. There's my mother, my sister, and myself. And of course, we had to get in immediately and close the door because, God forbid, if neighbors would see or something. So we got in there, no questions asked, and they got us into that bunker downstairs. We had to learn how to go down, because first you have to go down, it's all under the bed, and well, this is not important because these are, but we were there. We were safe. What they were thinking, that didn't matter to me. What it mattered to me that we were, the 3 of us were there. And it was a tough 6 months to be on the ground with no air, hardly any food, being hated by everybody. I was the bad one because I brought them there, my mother, my sister, even if it's your brother or it's your sister-in-law. If we had room in the first place, we would take you, the three of you, but there's no room for three. But they made room. We were at the entrance, and I was lying. They didn't put a blanket or anything, just a little straw with that coat that I was wearing when we escaped together. I was lying there for 6 months, and so was my mother. My sister, they liked my sister because she was not the bad one. She was the good one. I was the bad one because I saved my mother and my sister. They had some blankets, so my sister was lying down on the blankets. And the rest I don't have to tell you what happens to a human being when he had no sanitary services, things, and nothing, and no food. What happens to a person? It's like as if you bury somebody. That's what happens to a person. And we were there for 6 months. And one day, there again a rumor that the Russians occupied our city. Wow, we are free. We are free. So my aunt got very creative, and she had some pieces of fabric, because we couldn't go out with that coat that was a hole like this from lying down 6 months on the ground. So I'm not surprised that I have spinal stenosis. And she made a dress for me and for my sister. And we did go out of there. And it took us a while to become people. It took us quite a while to become. What my mother knew the sister, so she took me. We were looking for some people, organization that could go, maybe they would help us with something. We couldn't find anything. And we went on the main street of the city, walking. Here the Russians are occupying the city, and they're going farther to Germany. And these trucks with soldiers are driving, and we are walking, three ladies, three skeletons are walking in the main street. The trucks were stopping with the soldiers to see if that's real. How could skeletons walk? And from then on, we started to take every day at a time to get back to be human beings. We never went back to our house where it was, because I saw when they destroyed my house. The ghetto where they had the certificates were right across from the house that we had, and I saw them destroying on our house. And we never went back to that area at all. Even if it was a house that my grandmothers, my uncles, we never went back to that area. And we were always looking for other places to have a room. And my mother went on the market, and she baked some rolls on the market to sell to the soldiers. The soldiers, poor things, the Russians came to the market and grabbed a roll and didn't have money to pay for it even. The Russian soldiers. And we didn't get help from anybody. Like people, when they came to America, they got help. We did not get help after all that experience. non-Jewish committees, nobody. You got to help yourself. So my mother signed me up to school. And I was 10 years old when we got free. By then I was 10 years old. And she signed me up to school for the first time in my life. My mother and my sister were on the market selling. At that time, to buy a little salt was a treasure. Or buy some yeast that you bake bread with was a treasure. You could make money out of these things. And my mother went to a bakery, she was baking and selling rolls. And they were sitting there in the winter in the cold and making a penny. So we can buy a chicken and make a chicken soup. And my mother said, you know what, Ethel, I bought a chicken, why don't you, because I went to school, I didn't sit in the market. She said, Ethel, why don't you go home and cook a chicken soup, and we come home from the market, we can have something to eat. And I was 10 years old at that time. And she told me what to do, and that's what I did. I came home and I cleaned the chicken, and I cooked the chicken soup, and my mother and my sister came from the market. There was something to eat. And that's how we started to survive. And it didn't take long. We had nothing to look anymore in our city anymore, nothing for. All we can go is to see the graves where our loved ones are buried, were killed. And we had nothing to look there for. And second of all, when the war ended in 1945, the allies, that was Russia, America, France, and England, were going to divide the whole area, who's going to get part of what, because they were all involved in the war. So Russia was going to get my part of the world. They should take that part of Poland, and the French, and they told us, you are Polish citizens, because this is Poland when the war started. It's going to be Russia now. If you are ready to be under the Russian government or remain Polish and citizens, you're entitled to leave now. Because if you stay on, you're not going to be any Polish citizens anymore. You're going to be Russian citizens. And most of the Jews that survived packed up their few pekalach what they had and left our town. And we ended up in Lodz. Lodz is the big city in Poland, and that's where the main things were going on. They already started to make kibbutz for children, the children that survived, get them all together, teach them Hebrew, teach him how to be a human being, how to hold a knife, how to hold a spoon, everything and that's how it was.
So in Lodz, you went with your sister or just you?
My sister went to kibbutz too, but she was 4 years older, so she went to the elder people, like the teenagers. I was a child, so I went to child.
So where was your mother?
My mother was living privately, yeah.
With
Lodz.
you?
No, not in kibbutz.
So you guys were separated?
We were in Lodz, but separated, yeah.
Yeah, so, because I know in a kibbutz, like, the child and you're totally different, like, you're totally separated.
No, my mother was living in town, Lodz. She had a room, and she was living her life, a normal life.
What was she doing?
Again, they were handling. They were doing kinds of business, buying and selling, and this and that. That's what people did in those days. And in kibbutz, somebody told, I was not in kibbutz. My mother sent me when we came to Lodz, she sent me to school, to Yiddish school, to learn Yiddish. That's all she knew. There was a Yiddish school in Lodz, so I went to Yiddish school. But then we were with people, and they said to my mother, he had a daughter more or less my age. He said, why don't you send your daughter to that kibbutz? It's wonderful for the children there. And my mother sent me to that kibbutz, and that was the best thing that happened to me, really. Really, in Lodz. First of all, we were taken care of, and we were watched. Because the adults in Lodz were watching the children, because it was dangerous even after the war for a Jewish child to be in Lodz, to walk the streets.
Why?
They were killing the Jewish children in Lodz, the Gentiles, after the war.
How? Like shooting them?
Yeah, they were just killing them. So the kibbutz, they had adults that they watched us. There were people standing all night and watching our kibbutz, the children, that nobody will attack our kibbutz, just watching us. So Lodz was a good place for us. It was the best place that my mother decided. Is she all right?
Yeah. So, how did you get to Israel?
Oh,
This is the question.
okay.
Well, because everyone else that I've interviewed went to America, and they told how they got to America. So,
How I got to Israel, that
Yeah.
wasn't as simple as to
I
go to
know.
America. To America, if anybody could go to America, once we got to Germany. From Lodz, they brought us to Germany to the DP camps. DP, displaced people's camps. And we were in Leipheim. With the kibbutz, the whole kibbutz. We came to Leipheim and we were in the DP camp. And of course, when you're in kibbutz, you're taken care of. But you're in kibbutz for a reason. You're not just there for no reason, not working, just go to school. You're going to have to pay for it. I went to school, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. They had such a wonderful school there. All the ages, not just the 6 or 7 or 8. Even 18 kids were in the same class because none of us went to school before. And I learned a lot. Ever since Lodz and that DP camp, it was good schooling for me, very good schooling. So we came to the DP camp, and my mother and my aunt, my mother's sister, they all traveled with me, with the kibbutz. The parents traveled. They were not with me in the kibbutz living, but traveling, they traveled with us. They didn't separate. And we came to DP camp in Leipheim, near Munich. And there was a school. I went to school, and it was good. And then the reason was they gave the people a choice. I didn't even know there was a choice you could go to America. I didn't have the slightest idea that there's a choice that you have. You have a choice. You can say, I don't want to go to Palestine. I want to go to America. I didn't know there's such a choice. I didn't know. And my mother wouldn't think of it either. Because my sister was a teenager, Aliyat Noah, she went before us. She thought she's a big shot. She can go, with Aliyat Noah. So she did go. And she went on a boat and she ended up in Cyprus. We were separated for the first time. And my mother worried her being alone. And then came the time that they told my mother, there's a ship that's going to be waiting for us in France, in Port de Book, Marseille, and it's going to take us to Palestine. And we are elected to go. We didn't say one word no. What did we know about Exodus, ships? What did we know? They take us, we go. And it came the time that we packed up our suitcase and we went. And they took us to Marseille and they put us in a camp there. It was horrible. And we were waiting and waiting 6 weeks for that ship. We were waiting for that ship. What I got to know about that ship is now, which I didn't know then. But now I know. First I'll tell you how I got on the ship, then I'll tell you what kind of ship that is. And one night they tell us, oh, the ship is ready. Just get ready, tomorrow morning we're going to go on tracks, we're going to the ship. So everybody put their pack of suitcases, and we were already leaving the barracks and sleeping outside and waiting for the tracks to take us to the ship. We were sleeping outside already. So one morning they said the ship is in the port and you're gonna be picked up with trucks, we'll get you to the ship. And that's how it was. We got on the tracks and they took us all the way to the port where the ship was. And just to go through and go on the ship, you could get sick immediately. But that didn't matter because we are going to Palestine, to Israel. And we got on the ship and they gave us cabins, not cabins, why do I call it cabins? Naras, like wood, like
Bunk bed.
Bunk beds.
Yeah.
It wasn't beds. It was wood and wood.
Like planks of wood.
What?
Just like,
Yeah.
like wood. Like
Wood,
slabs.
just like wood. Yeah.
It's like a bunk bed without the bed.
The bunk bed without the bed. And that's how they put 4,500 people on that ship on those bunk beds. With children, with babies, with pregnant women, with anybody. Food is maybe a boiled potato with a piece of herring, maybe you got it. Somebody was on top of us, his jam spilled on us. What can I tell you? Those things are minimum, are not that important. And we got on the Exodus, and the ship, you know, everybody's on the ship, and we have to leave the port to go to Israel. And the British knew that we are leaving, and they wouldn't let us out from the port. The British
From France.
all the time. They were watching us all the time. They did not want the Jews to go to Palestine, the British. Why? First of all, the British had a mandate in Palestine, and that mandate did not end yet. And they were under the influence of the Arabs. The Arabs said to the British, don't let in Jews to Palestine. Don't. And the British would listen to the Arabs because of the oil thing. And they just listened to the Arabs and more. And we got on that ship, and it was a very difficult exit from the port to go on the ocean, to get to Palestine. But finally we left that port, and the British warships were following us all the time. All the time they were following us. And they were talking to us, they were so close, they were talking, you know, to go to Palestine and this and that. And in the middle of the ocean, they put up a fight with us. They were so close to the Exodus, 2 warships, one on this side and one on that side. And they were shooting. And one teenager got killed, a few people got killed. The Jews did not have weapons. They didn't go to Israel with weapons. They went to Israel with potatoes, not weapons. And they came to fight with heavy weapons, the British. And there was a fight. And what the British did, one warship on this side of Exodus and then on the other side, and they were squeezing that ship, our ship, on both sides. And they made a big hole in the ship. Luckily the ship didn't sink. And then they jumped on the ship, the British, on the Exodus. As a matter of fact, there was a window where I was sleeping. One soldier jumped in through that window, and I saw him right next to me. The British soldier, and his leg was injured, bleeding. And he went inside, and they took over the ship, the Exodus, the British. And they brought us all the way to Haifa. The plan was that the ship was not supposed to land in Haifa. It was supposed to land in Tel Aviv, actually. But once the British took it over, they brought us all the way to Haifa. And they took us off the ship.
How long did that take?
Well, that journey took maybe 2 weeks, I don't know, something like that. With the fighting and all this. And they took us, we came to Haifa port, and they took us off the ships, and they put us on their own ships, on British cargo ships, 3 British cargo. They divided us on 3 cargo ships and put us on 3 cargo ships, the 4,500 people. And the next morning, you look on Haifa, that's all you can see. You cannot do anything. They took off from Haifa, and we're going back to France. We're going back to France with the 3 cargo British ships.
So you went all the way down, and then you went all the way
all the way, and then they put us all the way down, because there were cargo, all the way down in the basement there. That's where we were living. And we came all the way back to France, and they wanted us to get off. Says, you came out from France, you left France, and you go back to France. You're not going to go to Palestine, Israel. And that time the Haganah was working. I don't know if you know anything about the Haganah. The Haganah in the British times was like the Israeli army. Not legally, but that's what it was. And the Haganah was following us all the time and telling us what to do. They came by with small little boats. Lola read it, don't get off, don't get off. And they wanted us to get off, and we said, no, we don't want to get off back in France. We want to Palestine. Until they invited the French government. The people from the government, from the French government, came to us on the ship to talk to us, telling us, if you go down here, we will be very nice to you, we'll give you housing and work and everything you need. The French government talked to us, and we said, no, we want to go to Palestine. We are not getting off the ship. There's no way we're getting off the ship. And we didn't. And it took like 3 weeks, I think we were standing in that port, on the ship, in the heat, in the dirt, At the end, the British government, the nice British government, which everybody likes London so much, decided to take us back to Germany. Germany, all the way to Hamburg, Germany. That's what the British government, I was reading just a book not too long ago about those ships. The British government decided that they should take us back to Germany. They took us back to Germany.
Back to hell.
What?
Like back to your... Like
back to Europe, where we just got all killed there. Hitler killed, because most people on that ship were survivors.
Yeah, you said they took you back to hell.
Yes. And we had no choice. We had to get off the ship over there because they were threatening us. They were going to hose us off, and they already had the hoses ready. I said, well, we're getting off. We got off the ships, and they put us in prison camps where they keep prisoners with barbed wire and all this. That's where they put us all, the 4,500 people, in prison camps. And that was the British part of Germany, because they divided Germany, so that was the British part of Germany. That's why they could do it. If it was a different part, They could only do what belongs to them. And they put us in those camps, and they gave us food, some food, and it was getting close to winter. We needed clothes and this and that. But then the Jewish organizations intervened, the Haganah and all the Jews. There were a lot of Jewish organizations that were working in Germany. And they sent in some food for us to the camps, and clothing because it was getting winter. And they still wouldn't let us go. They would keep us in those camps. They wouldn't let us go until there was a lot of intervening, a lot of talking with the Jewish organizations to let us free. And finally they did. It took time, but they did. And then we got in a place called Emden, and they gave us, the Jewish organizations gave us housing and food and clothes and everything. It was fine. We started to live again. Like in one room we were living with, me, my mother, Mimi Brandl, her husband, Chaya Meir, her mother, her father, her brother, and another couple. There were maybe like 15 people living in one room. And, but we were free. We were free. We could do whatever we wanted. Whether we wanted to go back to Israel, or we wanted to go back to Leipzig where we were living before, or we wanted to go to America. We were free people. We could decide for ourselves once we were out of the British hands. And me, my mother, we did not change our minds because my sister went before us, and my mother couldn't see her without us. We had to join her. And we waited for another ship to go to Palestine. And it didn't take long. And they said, there's a ship that we're going to give you now. It's a Greek liner, a Greek luxury liner you're going to be on. But you're not going to have your own passport. You're going to go on a false passport, somebody else's passport. And okay, you have to learn a new name. And we got on that ship, and it was winter, kind of January, February, March, and the ocean, the Mediterranean, was a killer. Oh, we went, me and my mother, they gave us a beautiful cabin with food, with everything, but we went into that. And we were so sick, the two of us. To go to the dining room? Forget it. We didn't get out that cabin to eat or something because the ocean was horrible. It made us all very sick, me and my mother. And one of the waiters came in and said, why don't you come to the dining room to eat something? How long are you going to be sitting in this room? He says, we don't want to eat, we are so sick. Anyways, we didn't go, we went once, and they gave us black olives, which is Greek. Black olives, this is the one of their favorites. And I like prunes, wonderful. I see the black olives, I thought they were prunes. What do I know about black olives? When did I eat black olives? And I take a prune, oh my, black olive, oh my God. It's not enough, I was so sick, that's black olive taste. For the first time in my life, I tasted black olive. And the ship kept on going, and it went, it's supposed to end up in Haifa, but it went, because it was a luxury liner, people were going on their cruises, so that he went through Egypt to end up in Haifa. When this ship came into Egypt, in Port Said, and the Egyptian soldiers got to know there are Jews on that ship. A bunch of soldiers came on that ship, I don't know if they were already on the ship or whatever, and they came to kill us all. Can you believe it? They came to kill us all. We were on the deck, you know, look at this Port Said, it was nice, this and that. All of a sudden we hear killings. Run down the stairs, run down the stairs. We didn't run. We were rolling down the stairs, not to be killed. They injured one of the Itonaim reporters. And until the captain got to know what's going on, he came running and he saved our lives. And we made it to Haifa port. We made it to Haifa port, so the Jewish trucks picked us up in Haifa port. We showed them up passports, false or not false, and they took us immediately up the Carmel in Haifa. And they put us in a hotel. And they said to us, you know, you're not legal here. The British are going to look after you. They're going to look after you. They look in the hotels and the restaurants.
They're going to look for you or look after you.
What's that? They're going to be after to looking for illegal.
They were going to look for you instead of like nurture you. They weren't looking. No.
Yes,
it made it sound like
yes.
Like look after me.
Oh, look after me. That wasn't the right thing to say. Okay, you understand. You're one of us.
So yeah.
So they said to us, you cannot stay in this hotel or go in the dining room. We'll give you every day a few liras. You go to the supermarket or the market and buy yourself food and eat. And be around that hotel very little. Don't show yourself that much, because the British are looking. They got to know that you're on false passports, and so it didn't take long, and they put us on. It was not a tank like the tanks that they fight in the war, but was similar to a vehicle like that, and they took us all the way to the Betolim for the newcomers in tents near Tel Aviv, near Hadera. And that's how we started. We worked in the fields to get the potatoes out, and we made the first lira. That's the story of my life. I mean, part of my life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being able to listen to all this. You're a young kid. You're only 18, you know?
Just today.
Yeah, that's something. Happy birthday. God bless you. God bless you for doing this. I didn't do it for Steven Spielberg. I remember that. But I did it for you. Yes.
I have last couple questions.
Okay.
Was there anyone you met during the war? And I asked all of the survivors this question. A story. One time, if you met someone, something happened. Was there one thing that you'll never forget? One thing that pops.
One specific thing?
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult to pick a specific thing.
Or
because the whole thing is always in my mind. And as I get older, it just comes there. I don't want to think about it. It just appears. It's the whole experience from the Holocaust lives with me day and night. If I behave like a human being, it's just an appearance. Just because I'm alive, I'm among normal people, and I have to behave the way a normal person behaves. sometimes I get out of line and I keep on telling my story from nowhere. People get tired of listening, you know, but I do that. It's the whole experience from that war where I was a child, and what I saw and what I went through. I cannot think about one specific thing, because if I do, I don't do justice to the whole thing, the whole experience. Because everything that happened is specific. Everything that happened is very specific. And I cry many times, why did that happen? How could that happen? And how, and one specific thing, if you want to know, is the question what I am asking myself. Who was behind the whole thing that I survived? This is my main question. How did I survive? Why did I survive, and how did I survive? And saving my mother and my sister. This thing never leaves my mind. Never. How? What happened? Who was behind it? Because there were so many smart people then that you have no idea how many smart people. And they didn't survive. There had to be something, some kind of, I don't know how to say it. Was it
a spirit?
Was it a spirit? Was it muzzle?
Fate.
What?
Fate.
Fate? No, I don't know if fate works on its own. I don't know. Well, we all believe that we will survive. Nobody thinks they're going to get killed. Everybody wanted to survive. But and everybody thinks about their own case, how they survived. Mm-hmm. And when I think about my case, I just cannot understand it. How we survived.
And my last question.
Who gave me that fate? Maybe it's fate. And maybe somebody was worrying about me, which I don't know. Who, where, how. Because as I told you, there were no heroes there that could fight the Germans. What is your last question?
Why is it important for you to tell your story?
For me to tell the story, it's not just one thing that's important. It's not just one singular thing that's important. Of course, the main thing that the story should be never forgotten, and we should remember it forever. And second, to remember what people, what Germans can do to people, that's one thing, very important. And another thing, I don't know if every survivor would think that way, but me, myself as a survivor, I can never get a justification to justify what happened. Why it happened. Why? My grandmother, my mother's mother, was left on a shelf in a closet. That's what my grandfather did with her. He couldn't do anything else. He left her on a shelf, and she would die on that shelf. That's all he could do with her. He couldn't save her. Why? Because people wanted to live a normal life. They want to have families, support their families. My father did that. He died for us. He went down to get a little water for us to drink. That's all. This is a question that I don't have an answer. It'll bother me for the rest of my life. Or the rest of my life. Why did my grandfather, this grandmother deserve to starvation, to die from starvation? Why? She was a tzedekah. Why? It's I just can't find, and after what happened and what's happening today to people, they're going through some bad things. And they still don't try to change it, to stop it. It should happen again, and it looks like it'll happen again. Like people get beheaded. This is an awful thing. Why? And that why has no answer. It has no answer. And the main thing what I have is who gave me that luck to survive the war with my mother, my sister? Who gave me that luck? That assessment came into that room and didn't take us to kill us, he left us there. And who gave us that strength to live through that bunker for 6 months and come out like skeletons and survive? I want to know those answers, but there's no answer to that. There's no answer to that. And how did people survive concentration camps? This was awful. This was awful. I would like to know from educated people that they are studying all their lives, what is their answer? What is their answer to live through? People should live through life like that, but they didn't touch anybody. They didn't cause any harm to anybody. All they want just live a normal, decent life for themselves and their families. Why? But there's no answer. And I cannot find the answer. I'm just living with the hope there was somebody behind it that made us survive. What can I say? I don't know why. I am not a hero that it happened. What had happened? It happened was just happened. I'm so proud of myself that I could come back to my mother and not listen to anybody, and just go according my own feelings. In feeling that I will save my mother and my sister. I'm so proud of myself that I didn't listen to anybody as a child. This is a very, very important point in my life. If I had survived without my mother and without my sister, my life would not be the way it was. No way. No way. And I'm very, very proud of myself that I did it knowingly or not knowingly. I just did it. As mothers, as us, we feel what it is. I think like that.